Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you guys how I made this Demogorgon cake from Stranger Things. I hope you guys stay to the end of the video. As always, don't forget to subscribe if you're watching me for the first time. And if you're already follow me, thank you very much. And let's get started. I'm going to start by showing you guys how I made the background of the cake. This is the styrofoam poster board, which I cut in an odd shape just to fit my board. I'm also using little tiny LED lights, which I purchased at the 99-cent store, and they're powered by battery. I'm going to be using edible food gel. I use brown, white, and pink, and black. I was going to do it with my airbrush gun, but it was not working. I don't know what was wrong with it, so I had to paint this, and I did have to go over the black a couple of times because it kept turning like a grayish color. So I did do a couple of coats of black. Here I'm using edible food marker to make the lines where the letters are going to be placed, and here I was trying to make the flowers, but at the end they didn't really show. Once I put the letters on, I used something sharp just to make a little hole on the top of each letter. This is where I'm going to be inserting all the LED lights. I taped the back of the wire of the LED lights to make sure that they were going to stay in place. So I did a couple of them, and then I will tape the end of the wire, and they stayed pretty good. I continued to do this until I was done with all my letters. This is how I did my background for the cake. I also painted the sides of this board with black edible food dye, and I also inserted some wooden dolls on the bottom so later on I could attach it to my cake. To start building this cake, I started off with my Dence Vanilla cake recipe. I already have a separate tutorial for this cake recipe on my recipe playlist. I will also try to link it down below, but if not, you could always go to the recipes and it will be there. I'm using my template as a guide to see how tall I need to make my cake, and I only use 3 layers of cake to accomplish this. This is going to be a very small cake. It's only for the purpose of me practicing 3D cakes and to bring you guys the tutorials. For the top portion of the cake, I left the little cake belly. I did not cut it off. That way it will add more depth to the upper part of my cake, and I wouldn't have to later on add a lot of buttercream or a lot of fondant to build up the chest area. Using my template as a guide to know where I have to cut, I did not do a lot of carving in this cake. It was very minimal, but I did go slow. And as you guys can see right here in the video, it's not producing a lot of crumb while I'm cutting. This is why I love this cake recipe. It's very dense and it does not produce a lot of crumb, so it's perfect for carving. After chilling my cake for about 15 to 20 minutes, I continued to build the upper shoulder area and the neck and the mouth of the Demogorgon. I did this with homemade Rice Krispie treats. Once I was happy with the shape, I iced this over again with the buttercream and I set it in the refrigerator to chill for a couple of hours. The cake is finally nice and chill, and I'm going to start putting these little lines of fondant in the neck area and the chest area of the cake. This is to build up the cake and to make the effect of the ribs and the muscles. And I promise that once I add the rest of the fondant, like the top portion of the fondant, this will make sense. I covered the cake in two parts. I did the upper portion first. I wanted to make sure that I was going to have full coverage. And as you guys can see here now, I placed the fondant and I'm smoothing in between with my balling tool, in between those lines of fondant that I made. So now it's giving the effect of the ribs and the muscles. For the back of the cake, I cut off all the excess fondant and I try my best to smooth it as much as possible. Then I added a round piece of red fondant on top. This is for the Demogorgon's mouth, and I smoothed it out as best as I could. I used the rest of my Rice Krispie treats to make the vines or those black kind of snake looking things that come out in the show. I don't even know what they're called. I buttercreamed the cake board, and then I added these to the top, put it in the refrigerator to set for a little bit, and then I added the black fondant on top. For the mouth of the Demogorgon, I decided to use wafer paper instead of gum paste or fondant. The reason why is because wafer paper is literally light as a feather. It does not weigh anything, and it also dries fairly quick. By the time that I was done making my fifth petal, the rest of the petals were dry and ready to decorate and to place on the cake. To attach all of these petals together with the wire, I made a wafer paper glue. It's just the scraps of the wafer paper with a tiny bit of water to create a paste, and this becomes the glue. To color the petals, I used black food gel, a little bit of white. I also added a couple of drops of glycerin and a couple of drops of distilled water and made like a kind of a paste consistency. But once I started coloring my petals, I colored the large petals first. I noticed that it was looking, instead of looking gray, it was looking more like a blue color, which I did not like. And at the end, I was able to fix my airbrush gun, and I ended up going over these petals with the airbrush gun. For the airbrush colors, I used a little bit of black for the back, and for the middle of the petals, I used 2 drops of red and 1 drop of black mixed with vodka to create this dark red color. Also colored the middle of the Demogorgon's mouth, and I added texture with this brush onto the board. To make the arms, I added 2 long pieces of fondant to each side of the cake, and I added smaller pieces to the top to build up the shoulders. Then with the scoring tool, I marked the arms just to add texture to them. To make the long hands of the Demogorgon, I used a piece of fondant which I pressed with the palm of my hand, and then I cut 5 slits into it, and with my fingers I rolled out the long fingers, and I did this for both sides and placed them as I thought that they looked best in the cake. I wanted my Demogorgon to look like it had literally tear something apart. I wanted it to look bloody and, I guess, as gory as I could get it to look. So I added red to the middle of the chest and to the hands, to the arms and the hands. And I continued to add a little bit of black just to give a little some contrast to the cake. But I think I got too trigger happy and I added too much black. Here I'm placing all the petals for the mouth of the Demogorgon. I also added a smaller piece of red fondant in the middle, and I also colored it with a little bit of black and red. I then placed my board on the cake board, and I attached it to the bottom part of the big piece of Rice Krispie treat that I added on the back of the cake. Now, I wasn't gonna sit here and make each little tooth out of fondant, so I decided to make it with royal icing. This is a very light piping consistency, and it worked out great. For the last and final step, I'm making the blood that you guys see hanging off the Demogorgon's mouth. I used some corn syrup, and a little bit of red food dye. I microwave this mixture for 30 seconds, and what this does, it makes the corn syrup almost like solidify. It gets hard, so you're able to create that drip effect without it completely falling off the cake. I added the corn syrup all over the mouth and the petals, or I don't even know what these things are called. I call it petals. I wish I would have added more. I added also to the chest and to the cake board. I really wanted it to look like it just finished, tearing something apart, and it was bloody and nasty, and I really wish that I would have added more to it. It would have looked great. But overall, it came out good. Now this is what I'm talking about. By microwaving the corn syrup, I'm able to touch it. It creates a drip effect without it completely falling off the cake. I did find that once I placed it in the refrigerator and I brought it out again to room temperature, some of the drips did fall off. They did get like condensation, but overall, everything was good. Most of the drips stayed. So I was very happy. As always, please don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Give me a thumbs up, and thank you very much for watching.